For centuries, Egypt believed itself protected. Protected by deserts, protected by the Nile, protected by traditions that stretched back thousands of years. But no civilization remains isolated forever. One day, foreign rulers arrived from the east. They brought new weapons, new technologies, new ways of fighting, and before long, they controlled much of Egypt itself. For the first time in history, the land of the pharaohs was ruled by outsiders. Yet, this humiliation would ultimately transform Egypt. Because from this crisis would emerge some of the greatest military leaders, most powerful pharaohs, and largest armies the ancient world had ever seen. This is the story of how Egypt stopped being a kingdom and became an empire. By around 1800 BC, the stability of the Middle Kingdom was beginning to weaken. Powerful rulers had maintained order for generations. Trade flourished. Agriculture remained productive. Egypt seemed secure. But beneath the surface, familiar problems were returning. Succession disputes weakened royal authority. Regional leaders gained influence. Foreign groups increasingly settled within the Nile Delta. The government still functioned, but its grip was loosening. One of the final rulers of this era was Sobekneferu. She became the first undisputed female pharaoh in Egyptian history. Her reign demonstrated that women could wield royal authority at the highest level. But after her death, the royal line fractured. The kingdom entered another period of uncertainty. And beyond Egypt's borders, ambitious newcomers were watching. Around 1650 BC, a group known as the Hyksos established control over northern Egypt. The Egyptians would later describe them as foreign rulers. Their exact origins remain debated, but they likely came from regions of the Near East. Unlike traditional invaders, the Hyksos didn't simply appear overnight. Many had settled gradually within Egypt before rising to power. When central authority weakened, they seized the opportunity. They captured the Nile Delta. They established their capital at Avaris, and they ruled much of Lower Egypt. For Egyptians accustomed to centuries of independence, it was a shocking development. Foreign kings now controlled a significant portion of their homeland. Yet the Hyksos brought more than political change. They introduced technologies that would revolutionize warfare. Horse-drawn chariots, advanced composite bows, new bronze weapons, military innovations that Egypt had never fully embraced before. Ironically, the tools that helped conquer Egypt would eventually help liberate it. The Hyksos period was not merely an era of occupation. It became a period of learning. Egyptian leaders carefully observed their rivals. They studied new military techniques. They adopted new technologies. And they prepared for the day when they could reclaim their kingdom. Meanwhile, in southern Egypt, a familiar city was rising once again: Thebes. Just as it had during the first intermediate period, Thebes became the center of resistance. Its rulers refused to accept foreign domination. Generation after generation, tensions increased. The stage was being set for a struggle that would reshape Egyptian history. One of the first leaders to openly challenge Hyksos authority was Kamose, a ruler of Thebes and a fierce defender of Egyptian independence. Kamose viewed the divided state of Egypt as unacceptable. In his eyes, foreign kings controlled the north, while Nubian powers threatened the south. Egypt was trapped between rivals. Determined to change this situation, Kamose launched military campaigns against the Hyksos. His forces pushed northward along the Nile. Battles erupted. Strongholds were attacked. The dream of reunification returned. Although Kamose did not live long enough to complete the task, he laid the foundation for victory. The war was far from over, but Egypt had begun fighting back. After Kamose came one of the most important figures in Egyptian history, Ahmose, a young ruler who inherited both a kingdom at war and a vision for the future. Ahmose continued the struggle against the Hyksos with determination. His armies advanced northward, strongholds fell, territory was reclaimed. Eventually, the Hyksos capital of Avaris was captured. The foreign rulers were driven from Egypt. For the third time in Egyptian history, the two lands were united under a single ruler. The achievement was monumental, but Ahmose did not stop there. He understood something previous generations had failed to recognize. If Egypt wanted security, it could no longer wait for threats to arrive at its borders. It had to project power beyond them. This realization would change Egyptian history forever. If you had been an Egyptian ruler at this moment, would you have focused on defending the borders or expanding the empire? Let us know in the comments below. History often turns on decisions exactly like this. Ahmose's victory marked the beginning of the New Kingdom. Many historians consider it the golden age of ancient Egypt. The military expanded dramatically. Professional armies became more common. Chariots became central to warfare. Egypt transformed from a regional kingdom into an aggressive imperial power. For the first time, pharaohs regularly campaigned far beyond the Nile Valley. Military expeditions pushed into Canaan. Influence extended into Syria. Control over Nubia strengthened. Tribute flowed into Egypt from conquered territories. Gold, livestock, luxury goods, exotic materials. The wealth of empire enriched the kingdom on an unprecedented scale. The lessons learned from the Hyksos occupation had been fully absorbed. Egypt was no longer reacting to history. It was shaping it. Among the most remarkable rulers of the New Kingdom was Hatshepsut. She began as regent for a young heir, but eventually assumed full royal authority. In a society dominated by male rulers, this was extraordinary. Yet, Hatshepsut proved exceptionally capable. Rather than focusing primarily on conquest, she invested heavily in trade and construction. One of her most famous achievements was an expedition to the mysterious land of Punt. Located somewhere along the Red Sea region, Punt provided luxury goods highly valued in Egypt: incense, exotic animals, rare plants, precious materials. The expedition was celebrated throughout the kingdom. Meanwhile, monumental building projects transformed the landscape. Her magnificent mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahri remains one of Egypt's architectural masterpieces. Hatshepsut demonstrated that strength could be expressed through prosperity as well as warfare. While trade flourished, Egypt's military influence continued expanding. Successive rulers extended control over foreign territories. The Nile was no longer the sole focus of Egyptian ambitions. The empire stretched across multiple regions. Governors administered distant lands. Tribute reinforced royal power. Foreign princes were educated in Egyptian culture. Egypt became one of the dominant powers of the ancient Near East. Its armies were respected. Its wealth was envied. Its rulers were feared. For generations, the empire appeared unstoppable. Yet with great power came new challenges. Managing vast territories was expensive. Political rivalries intensified, and within the royal court, tensions were growing. The greatest triumphs of the New Kingdom still lay ahead. But so did some of its greatest dangers. The arrival of the Hyksos changed Egypt forever. What began as a period of foreign domination became the catalyst for transformation. Egypt learned from its enemies, adapted, rebuilt, and emerged stronger than ever before. Under leaders like Ahmose and Hatshepsut, the kingdom evolved into a true empire whose influence stretched far beyond the Nile. But the most famous pharaohs in Egyptian history have not appeared yet. In the next episode, we will meet Akhenaten, the revolutionary king who challenged Egypt's ancient gods. Tutankhamun, the boy king whose tomb captivated the modern world. And Ramesses II, the ruler many consider the greatest pharaoh of them all. Thank you for watching Crowned History. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and join our growing community of history lovers. And tell us in the comments, was Egypt stronger because it learned from the Hyksos? Or would it have been better if the invasion had never happened? Next time, in Episode 5, Gods, Kings, and Revolution, ancient Egypt will reach its greatest heights and face some of its most dramatic changes. We'll see you there.